Today we're going to talk about what I would do if I was new to the realm of prepping and the government gave me back $1,200 of my money. What would I spend it on if I wanted to prepare for the second wave and the long-winded recession that would accompany it? Let's talk about it. Now, there's a distinct possibility that the $1,200 or $2,000 is going to be worth marginally less, possibly significantly less, next year if you don't spend it right away. This is due to something called inflation. In the wake of the superbug that has ravaged healthcare systems and economies around the world, there's now a pent-up demand for supplies. And of course, those supplies are in short supply. These two things, in conjunction with a marked increase in the money supply, thanks to the Fed's unrelenting determination to keep the markets propped up, will likely lead to inflation. When coupled with all of the other negative economic forecasts and the potential for a second and even third wave of the superbug, it's imperative that you're very prudent with your financials from here on in and you try to make every penny count. So some people will recommend that you take your money and you invest it in precious metals. Other people will tell you that you should go into the NASDAQ and invest in COVID-proof tech stocks like Netflix, Amazon, Apple, that's somehow still selling stuff, Zoom, Google, and all those places where people are piling into right now to put their money with the hopes that, well, they can retain some of that money if the market dips again. Others will tell you that you should invest it in a small business venture, or at least a nice suit for your soon-to-be Zoom interview for your next job. Now, I think all of those courses of action absolutely have merit, and it really depends on where you are financially, which avenue you want to pursue. Today we're going to talk about how if I only had $1,200 to spend on preparedness supplies, what would I spend them on right now at this point in time in these current circumstances that we face. So let's get to it. Now, if there's a break in the action in the coming weeks and months, and the supply chain becomes near fully operational once again, don't get too complacent. That is your opportunity to prepare for the potential second wave that's going to go down in the fall. And that's not all that's coming in the fall. We have a very unstable political environment and a market to deal with. So it's time to get ready this summer. Now, the things that you need to survive in a collapsing economy are simple. You need shelter, you need a means of self-defense, you need food, you need water, you need medicine, including personal protective equipment. You also need something that you can barter with. And lastly, some miscellaneous survival tools should you ever find yourself in a bug-out predicament. Although I think for the most part, as many people have known for the last 4 months, it's going to be a shelter-in-place scenario. Anybody who's watched this channel for a long time knows that I haven't spent much time talking about stacking precious metals for reasons I'm not going to get into in this video. But I do think in light of the current economic climate we're in, where governments of the world are printing money left and right, they're borrowing money left and right, that's a sign for me that maybe these currencies are going to be debased and it's time to have a hedge against inflation. Now, you only have $1,200, so gold is kind of out of the question. What I would recommend is maybe putting $100 of that into silver. So this is a silver coin. This is a 1 ounce silver coin. That probably goes for around $18 USD right now, between $15 and $18. Now, $100 worth of silver is not going to take you very far in this life. And if the supply chain gets screwed up again, this amount of silver probably isn't going to buy much. Yes, it will buy more than a hyperinflated $18 would, but what it would really be is a means for you to barter for something that you might need, which is essential down the road at some point. And it might just be a starting point for you to build out more of your wealth into precious metals. Now, I've heard some people say that you should have 10% in precious metals. I'm certainly not going to that extent, but I'll keep a few of these around just in case. Now, once again, these items are not listed in order of importance. If they were, food would be talked about first. But we're going to talk about self-defense. So, depending on where you live, the laws are obviously going to be different. The laws for the possession of various self-defense tools is going to vary from country to country, and also the laws which permit you to use those in self-defense are still going to vary even more. I've done videos where I talk with an expert in this area with respect to Canadian self-defense laws and what sort of leeway you're permitted in terms of using firearms to defend yourself. Now, in my opinion, I think the cheapest do-all firearm that a person could ever get has to be a shotgun. You can basically hunt anything with it, although it would be very challenging if you're hunting large game with rifled slugs out of a short barrel. So if you buy something for the purpose of home defense, don't expect that it's going to function that well in the field when you're trying to, shoot a deer from over 30-40 yards. They're very cost effective. One of the first shotties I ever bought was a Maverick 88. Probably the bare bones entry of home security firearms. There's not enough time in this video to talk about all the safety precautions a person should take with regards to the storage of these firearms and how to discharge them in a safe manner, even if it's to protect your life and limb. All I'll say is do so in accordance with the laws of your country. The shotty is great because it doesn't require a lot of accuracy at short range. Like I said, it's multi-purpose. You can use it to hunt a variety of different critters. And it's also one of the firearms that's last to get banned in any country due to its short range and relative inaccuracy when compared to a rifle or a semi-auto. If you're that new to the world of shooting, that probably means that there's a lot of hoops you need to jump through, especially if you live in Canada, in order to get your PAL. So throughout that process, I'm sure you'll learn a lot more than I could ever stuff into this video. I would take $300 of that money, put it into a decent working shotty. Now you can get shotties like the Mossberg Flex that have interchangeable barrels and stocks and just a variety of different accessories that you can add on to it over time. So that might be an option too if you want to buy the bare bones model right now and then build up on it later on. That also gives you the option to use it not only for home security, but also for long-range big game hunting. Now, if you do live in a country where firearms are disallowed and you need it to procure food, or maybe even for the purpose of self-defense if things go Mad Max on us, then a crossbow is a good option. We actually sell Excalibur crossbows here at CanadianPreparedness.com. And they're a great crossbow because you can see on there, not a compound bow, so they're a recurve. There's not a lot of moving parts, and they're built rock solid, built to last damn near forever. You can drop them out of a tree stand and it's not going to break on you. So the Excalibur made in Canada crossbows are the way to go for hunters. So if you want more information on that, I'll post a link in the description. Now, when it comes to food, this is where you should be spending the majority of your money. And I'm not talking about this fancy food you see here, freeze-dried food, which is made to last up to 25 years. It has all the moisture sucked out of it so that the texture, when you go and eat it 25 years from now, tastes the same. It's absolutely delicious stuff. But if you're on a $400 or $500 budget, this is going to be out of your price range, and it's not going to be cost effective. And to be quite frank, this is emergency food. Even though I tend to eat it all the time because it's delicious, it's still very expensive and not the best way to use your money. But if you did want to spend $100 or $200 on something which is emergency preparedness related, Alpine Air has 7-day meal kits. Now, 7 days, it doesn't always take into account the amount of calories you need. That's just the amount of entrees. So 7 times 3, 21 different entrees. I'm not sure how many calories this amounts to a day. Actually, that's only 14 entrees in here. So you're probably getting around 12 to 1500 calories per day, bare minimum. For women, that might be sufficient. If you're a larger male, that might not be sufficient. But I think these go for around 100 and I can't remember how much they go for, but I'll post it on the screen. Something like this currently, because of supply shortages, is going for $40 to $50. A lot of people talk about how precious metals are one of the best currencies in an SHTF situation. I can tell you that the value of this stuff goes way up, and especially seeing it has such a long shelf life, it's almost a really stable tool for barter. If you have something which is going to retain its value for a couple decades, more than a couple decades. This one right here expires in 2047. So you would be able to barter with this until 2047. That's why if you have a lot of money to spare, you might want to consider getting a Harvest Right freeze dryer, because that's going to allow you to make this stuff. It is a somewhat time-consuming and energy-intense process, but in the end, you're basically going to be holding something which will always have value, and arguably the most value to human beings that anything could ever have. Let's talk about some other more cost-effective options. Now this right here is a 5-gallon Mylar bag. Mylar is a non-porous material that allows you to store food for very long periods of time. If you store food in a food saver bag, over the years that food is going to take on the taste of the plastic. Air eventually gets into those food saver bags, and that's why you go back a year later and you see that it's now inflated. So with this, that doesn't happen. So what you would want to do ideally is put your staple grain or beans or freeze-dried food, whatever you have in here, do that in conjunction with oxygen absorbers. This is a bag of 300 cc oxygen absorbers. For a bag this size, you might want between 1000 and 2000 cc of oxygen absorbers, depending on how much oxygen was in the bag when you sealed it. The big ones go for about $2 each. The smaller ones are a bit cheaper, and you also have Ziploc variants in all of the sizes. Now the idea with this is that you can preserve food for a really long time. You can take rice, put it in a Mylar bag with oxygen absorbers, and it will last for decades. You can do that with flour, you can do that with potato flakes, you can do that with different types of beans, lentils, things of that nature. So it really is a great way to store food long term. So you might want to invest some of that stimulus money into this process. Now, the next thing I would buy with my stimulus money, if I was really concerned about getting food, would be whey protein, because it's probably one of the cheapest, most complete proteins that you can purchase. And it doesn't taste that bad if you mix it well with other things. It has a shelf life of between 2 to 3 years, depending on how you store it, especially with the price of meat going up in the next couple months and possibly for the foreseeable future. Finding an alternate source of complete protein is going to be absolutely essential to maintaining good health. Now, we were fortunate enough to get a fairly large supply of beef and freeze-dried chicken, so I'll post a link in the description if you wanted to grab some of that. Next thing I would go heavy on are vitamins. Vitamin D, vitamin B, and of course vitamin C are going to be absolutely essential. Now, another thing you can do, and we got to remember that this is not going to pertain to everybody, because the majority of people who watch this channel probably live in cities and they don't have yards which are going to be conducive to planting a garden. But having some survival seeds at your disposal might not be a bad idea. They're typically pretty cheap. You can buy a survival seed kit, which comprise of 30 to 40 different varieties of vegetables, and you never know, you might need it. But of course, there's a steep learning curve with gardening, and I think potatoes are probably the ideal calorie crop that people should be focusing on. You can pretty much grow them in anything, anywhere, so that might be something you want to consider, is some seeds. The ability to purify water is going to be quintessential in any survival situation. There are so many different ways to purify water, from using ultraviolet light to using chemicals to just using microfiber filtration systems. I think that probably the most cost-effective thing and the most multi-purpose thing for you to have at your disposal is calcium hypochlorite, also known as pool shock. It's something which most people don't know about, so you can probably still pick some up. It's a chemical compound in which you mix with water, and that's going to create bleach. And of course, you can use that bleach to either disinfect surfaces or use small amounts of it to disinfect water. It'll kill bacteria, viruses, you name it, it will get rid of it. It won't get rid of chemicals and other things like that. But, you know, chemicals are one of those soft kill, long-term things which will take you out in the long term, but it's not something that you're going to really be worried about if you just need a drink of water and you don't want to get sick. So you can get things like aqua tabs, which have the same function, or water treatment systems, chlorine dioxide, Like I said, various water filtration systems. For the most part, the water is probably going to stay on. So I think having maybe even a Berkey water filtration system in your home, that might be something you want to invest in. But if we're only dealing with $1,200 here, go get yourself a $20 bottle of Pool Shock. That won't break the bank. Now, in terms of personal protective equipment, the most cost-effective things you can buy are probably these Tyvek suits. And these are disposable suits. But I think with the nature of this virus, at least in its current form, with the 1 to 2% fatality rate, I don't think it necessarily warrants the use of something like this all the time, obviously. And this is something that you could set it out in the sun. The UVC light from the sun after a few hours would certainly kill the virus if it was left on here. So this is something, like I said, that goes for between $10 to $20. Right now, people are probably still selling it for a lot more than that. You can get them in a variety of makes. Some have hoods, some have built-in shoes. It's just a micro porous fabric, which is breathable. Now you can get the full meal deal hazmat suits, like the Haz suit. That is going to be non-breathable, but it's going to offer a lot more protection than this. Now I think for the most part, a lot of people are comfortable wearing N95 mask. You could also step it up to a half mask respirator. This is one from North. The North company is made by Honeywell, I do believe. And to be honest, this is the only one I have in stock. So these things fly off the shelf as fast as we can get them. And they're a little bit more expensive also. Now, full face respirators like the Mira CM6M or the Mestel varieties, these are very expensive. They're cost prohibitive for a lot of people. You're certainly not going to be able to afford it on your stimulus check, but that's definitely the top of the hop in terms of protection. It's not only good for biological contaminants, it's also good for nuclear, radiological, and chemical as well. I would say that your personal protective equipment should be at least $100 of your budget. So that should include things like gloves, disposable masks, maybe a couple of those disposable suits, cleaning supplies, and some hand sanitizer or antimicrobial wipes or something like that. And assessing the risk of this current virus in its current form, I should add, because this thing could mutate. We never know. It could mutate to become less lethal or more lethal. We don't know yet how it's going to go. So in that case, I would say $100 of your $1,200, a little under 10%, would be sufficient. Now, getting into some of the survival trinkets, you could easily spend all of your money on one of these items in any of these classes, be it an axe, a knife, a fancy flashlight. Believe it or not, there are flashlights which cost $1,000. But I would say generally, get yourself a decent flashlight that puts out between 500 to 1,000 lumens. Lighting is absolutely important. There could be a situation where we do see power outages as a result of economic catastrophe in the future, or maybe you just don't pay your bills, or maybe you have to bug out, or whatever the case might be. It could happen. So it's always good to have some emergency lighting at your disposal. And candles are another good option. You can find candles really cheap at your local dollar store. Two types of candles that you can consider. There's your beeswax, and then there's your normal candles. Beeswax are a bit more expensive, but they burn a lot longer. A lot of people have these cool tactical flashlights in their kit, but what you're likely going to end up using for the majority of the time is some kind of lantern, some sort of area light to light your space. So for that, we do carry this thing called the Sitka Plus Lift Lantern, and it is an area light. We sell a lot of different lanterns. There's also candeliers. You can put your candles in there. It acts like a lantern. That is something which is disposable. It's non-renewable. So that's where the lithium-based lanterns come in really handy, because if you have a solar charger, you can continuously use them. And it should go without saying that let's not make the same mistake again. Make sure you have an ample supply of toilet paper. Now, I could give you a full tour of the warehouse and we'd be here all night, because we have over 1,000 high-grade premium products. And quite frankly, I don't think many of these are going to be within this stimulus budget that I'm talking about. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Let me know how you're going to spend your stimulus check in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, your one-stop shop for premium, high-quality, brand-name products that have been tried and tested by myself and other YouTube gear reviewers. My subscribers save 10% off by using the coupon code SURVIVALPREPPER. All one word in all caps.